Starting off number 10 now, we have Dwarf Nose. Some of you may have heard me talk about candle love. In a series of posts on an internet forum, a person started a new thread by asking about a TV show called Candle Love. Some people remembered it and were shocked that they ever forgot it. It was a twisted show that was disguised as a children's TV show. It started as a normal looking pirate puppet show, but eventually morphed into something much creepier. If you haven't heard of it, check it out. If you have, well, it turns out that Russia may have its very own version, and it's called Dwarf Nose. Over the years, a number of Russians have stated that the Soviet Union once broadcast a creepy, disturbing film on television at night. No record of the film has ever been found, and skeptics believe the film never actually existed in the first place. According to the legend though, there are some people who are hell-bent on finding a copy of the mysterious film they saw, otherwise they are sure that they must have gone mad. Once they find it, their next aim is to find out why the movie aired in the first place and why the government now wants to cover it up.
At number 9 we have the Babin, let me know if I pronounced that wrong, I probably did, let me know if you know how to say it right, but this is said to mean ghoul of the waste, and it refers to a horrible ghost that lives in the mountains and deserts and just the barren wastelands of Afghanistan. The Babin is rumored to be a human eater, having devoured many men straight off their horses' backs in the olden days. I mean, how does it even reach there? A lot of the information I found on the ghoul has been written in maybe Dari or Afghani, and it's quite hard to understand if you're not from there. Most of the translated accounts describe it as being very big and living amid cold, shadowy areas. Apparently it's afraid of fire, so at least we have one weapon to use against it if need be.
Coming in at number 8 we have the Tribe. This is truly awful, but urban legend has it that back in 1896 the Budapest Zoo exhibited a tribe of 250 Africans from the savannah. Now they displayed them as quote unquote primitive humans. The exhibition was said to celebrate 1,000 years of the Hungarian nation, which I'm not sure what they had to do with an African tribe, but nonetheless people paid money to go and see them, and apparently they were very impressed with their bodies. Creepy. Honestly, a human zoo is absolutely not okay. I don't even really think that animal zoos are okay. Anyway, it turns out that while the story has been somewhat embellished over time, this urban legend is actually true.
Coming at number 7 now, we have the Patient Stone. This is a well-known and popular Persian folktale. The story says that the Patient Stone listens. That's what it does. It's an emphatic listener. It absorbs the sorrows and pains of the person who confides in it. One story talks of a mistreated girl who achieved her true destiny by talking to the Patient Stone, but it's also known for its explosive tendencies. It's said that when the stone can no longer contain the pain that it harbors, it bursts into pieces. This is seen as a sort of sacrifice, a way of destroying the pain that would otherwise crush the one who bears this burden of sorrow. Very deep stuff.
Coming in at number 6 we have the Executioner. Mastro Tita was Rome's official executioner. He was responsible for putting more than 500 people to death. Now it's said that his restless spirit wanders around near the Castel Sant'Angelo. Apparently in the early morning you can see him in his red uniform wandering around. Now others say that if you see him he may offer you tobacco, but you must reject it, because Mastro would offer tobacco to the people sentenced to death just before he would decapitate them.
Moving on to number 5 now, we have Lieutenant Schmidt's Bridge. This bridge is a well-known landmark in St. Petersburg and has become the source of many paranormal tales over the years. Locals have reported seeing a thin young lady walk along the bridge and always complain about her misfortunes. On the other side of the river, another young woman has been known to appear out of thin air and weep bitterly. Nobody has ever stuck around long enough to ask her why though. Legend says though that she is the spirit of Princess Tarakanova, who tried to claim the throne from Catherine the Great and was imprisoned in the nearby fortress for her crimes.
At number 4 we have jinns. Now Rebecca talked about the desert jinn in the Egyptian urban legends video, and it seems that in Afghanistan there are legends of jinns too. This is not surprising at all considering these are all Middle Eastern countries, and in Islam we believe in jinns, so the legends they have basis. They're mentioned in the Quran as beings formed by Allah. The jinn in Afghanistan are mischievous spirits. While their legends originated in places of nature, modern day Afghans believe that they live in gardens, under stairs, or in the U-bends of kitchen sinks. Most jinns are neither good or bad, just chaotic and love to mess with humans, which a lot of humans do as well, so I came across the account of a soldier in Kabul who claimed to have experienced a jinn when items went missing or moved without any explanation in his locked room. How did this happen? Someone please let me know. Some say it's also jinns who whisper in the ears of terrorists and make them do bad things.
Coming in at number 3, we have the Haunted Labyrinth. Paris has the Catacombs and Budapest has the Buda Labyrinth. This is rumoured to be one of the most haunted places in the city. The tunnels expand directly beneath the Buda castle, and artifacts discovered in the many caves off the tunnels suggest that the space has been used since ancient times. A torture chamber was also discovered, although seeing as it's attached to a medieval castle, I'm honestly not surprised. It seems that many people believe that there is residual energy from tortured souls and they still haunt the tunnels, and these spirits are actually very angry. Understandably so. If I was medievally tortured, I'd be angry too. Beyond that, some people even say the ghost of Vlad the Impaler haunts the tunnels. Now, he's only one of history's biggest killers, so should be fine, right?
Moving on to number 2 now, we have the jinn. I guarantee you've already heard of this before, you just don't know it. Jinn is the Arabic name. In English, these creatures are known as genies. See, I told you, you'd know what they are. However, jinns are a far cry from the bubbly blue genie from Aladdin. In ancient Persian culture, a jinn was a spirit or demon, a supernatural creature, sometimes worshipped, sometimes seen as malevolent. Many people feared jinn and thought they were responsible for causing various diseases or mental illnesses in people. Because of human hostility and just how outnumbered by humans they are, jinn were thought to inhabit desolate places, often dingy and dark, places where they were unable to harm humans unless one wandered too close.
And in our number 1 spot, we have the Capuchin Crypt, another supposedly haunted area in Rome. And honestly, I can see why this one is haunted. This crypt contains 6 different chambers and thousands of human bones. In fact, 5 of the chambers are elaborately decorated with the bones of dead people. There are chandeliers made of the bones and wall decor. In fact, there's a crypt of skulls, crypt of pelvises, crypt of leg bones, and thigh bones. So I could see why this place is haunted. Like, they separated body parts from each other and then made it into decor pieces. So people have reported seeing shadowy figures, orbs have been caught in photos, and there have even been extreme hot and cold spots. On top of that, candles and torches have gone out entirely or would be caught flickering. Same thing happened when electricity was installed. Bulbs would flicker or would be blown out entirely. Pretty creepy.
Coming into number 10, we have 39. In Afghanistan, a large number of people believe that the number 39 is heavily cursed. Okay, so a quick shout out to my friend Alex Lewis here. He also has a really weird thing with the number 39. Alex, did you know about the Afghan curse? Let me know. So it seems for some reason that the number is linked with pimping and prostitution. The number 39 is said to translate into mordagal, which means dead cow, which in Afghani is a term for pimp. Right, I feel like something got lost in translation there. Basically, nobody in Kabul and other parts of Afghanistan want to be associated with the number and will not be seen with vehicles with 39 in their number plates for fear of being smited by the dirty curse. Honestly, so strange, and apparently the issue is so bad that people will doctor car registration plates to turn 9s into 8s, and if someone's 39 years old, they will refer to themselves as one less than 40. They don't even like saying the word 39. It's a dirty, dirty word. An Afghan man with the number 39 in their telephone said that they regularly get calls asking for prostitutes, which again is deeply sinful in the Islamic country. In the 2010 elections, the 39th candidate on the ballot invoked a strong response from civilians, and 2 people were killed in the chaos. 39! Who knew? This is coming in next at number 9. Vera the cat. Vera the cat. So can anyone think of the reason that theatres have cats? I'll tell you. Theatres tend to be big old buildings. Big old buildings have mice. Having a cat helps keep the mice population down and also provides a furry friend for the theatre staff. At the Hungarian State Opera, it is said that a mysterious grey cat roams the building. It is said that this cat's name is Vera, and sometimes she shows as a very real looking cat prowling around. Sometimes she's just an ankle height shadow slinking around a corner. Some say they've even seen a pair of red eyes watching them from dark corners. Legend has it that Vera once belonged to an opera singer who performed at the theatre. Sadly, the cat died at the theatre, but in the afterlife is constantly searching for her owner. It's really sad. I'll love you, Vera.
Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Peri. These are winged spirits originating from Persian and Armenian mythologies. On a scale of morality, they are often described as being somewhere between angels and evil spirits of the world. Generally speaking though, they were seen as beautiful female spirits created by God after the vicious divs. They're a different type of creature altogether and very much seen as evil. Evil Peris are often grouped in with them though. In some folklore, they appear to humans. There have been tales of them punishing hunters in the mountains who are disrespectful or who waste resources, or even abducting young humans for their social events. Some are generally seen as beautiful, but perhaps there's more to them than meets the eye. A bit like me. Just kidding. No, I'm not kidding.
Moving on at number 7, we have the Mouth of Truth. Near the foot of the Aventine Hills, there is a Roman statue that has been a very popular tourist attraction for years. The structure is an ancient stone mask, supposedly representing a Roman god. The mask has wide eyes and an open mouth. Now, legend goes that if a liar puts their hand inside the god's mouth, they will lose it. This legend dates all the way back to Roman times, when a wife of a Roman noble was accused of adultery. To prove her innocence, her husband wanted her to put her hand inside the stone mouth. If she was lying, she would lose her hand. Well, this little sneaky woman devised a plan with her secret lover. On that day, her lover kissed her by the statue in front of her husband. The woman then acted appalled and was like, it's a madman, and the crowd chased him away. She then stated that she's never kissed anyone else besides her husband and this madman, which technically wasn't a lie since her lover was the madman. So she put her hand in the mouth of truth and she didn't lose her hand and was found not guilty. Pretty clever woman.
Next up at number 6 now, we have Rusalka. In Slavic mythology, the Rusalka is a fish woman, a sort of dark succubus if you like. They are women or children who have died violently before their time. If they're women, they've been jilted by their lovers, have been born out of wedlock, or murdered by those most dear to them, or perhaps have even committed suicide. They are said to be most dangerous to men and like to seduce them by singing to them and then wrapping their arms around them to pull them down into the water and drown them. Obviously, they are dangerous, there's no denying that, but many people believe they can do good. They are said to have control over the fertility of living things near them, and some control over the seasons. Some people believe they're a pretty good thing to have around.
We have MH370. Like many urban and ancient legends, this story is most likely not true, but it seems that there is a very popular conspiracy theory that the aircraft missing from flight MH370 was hijacked and flown to Afghanistan. As we know from this list, Russia and Afghanistan have historical beef, so this could be a reason that the Russian newspaper started a crazy rumor. The Moskovsky Komsomolets publication claimed that the plane was hijacked by terrorists and is in Afghanistan, not far from the Kandahar border near Pakistan. The passengers are said to be alive and well, but being held hostage and being forced to live in mud huts. Again, I honestly don't think there's any truth in this one, but that's what they're saying. Coming in at number 4, we have belly frogs. In Hungary, there is a weird legend that if you drink too much water, so much water that you hear like a sloshing sound in your tummy, then frogs will start growing there. Some kids even claim to be able to feel them swimming around and jumping. I mean, this one is a bit crazy, because like belly frogs. Robot. It seems that this tale is told to kids to stop them drinking too fast when they're thirsty. Is there such a thing as drinking too fast? I guess so, because nobody wants a belly frog.
Moving on to number 3 now, we have Deval Pei. This is an evil creature with flexible legs that resemble leather straps, which he uses as tentacles to ensnare and then enslave human beings. Lovely stuff. The slaves are then forced to carry him on their shoulders or backs forever. When they're not carrying them, they are made to do hard labor. This goes on until the human slaves just die of fatigue. In some stories, he takes the form of an old man who sits by the side of a road, imploring passers-by to carry him across a nearby stream. Once he is on the victim's back, a long leg comes out from his belly and twists across the victim's waist. Once that grasp is firm, he orders them to work for him. In all accounts of this evil being, there is said to be only one way to be released from his grip and be rid of him forever: alcohol. Not for the human, but for the Deval Pei. Once he is intoxicated, he is said to release his grip just enough for a slave to wiggle free. Presumably, they then just run for their lives and never look back. I'm guessing that's the final part of the story. That's what I do.
In our second spot, we have the Souls in Purgatory. So there's a museum in Rome called the Museum of Souls in Purgatory. Basically, it is filled with creepy objects that are apparently signed by souls trapped in purgatory. The artifacts include Bibles with handprints burned in, tabletops with fingerprints on it, and clothing with imprints on their sleeves. Some say that this is also from souls trying to communicate with their living relatives. Either way, this museum sounds pretty cool, and I would love to go there and check out all those artifacts. Who's with me?
And finally, number 1 now, we have the Brosno Monster. Essentially, this story is like the Russian version of the Loch Ness Monster. 250 miles northwest of Moscow, near Andriopol in West Russia, lies the small body of water known as Lake Brosno. Since 1854, locals have sworn it is home to a large, glowing reptilian creature. It's been described as 16 feet long, an iridescent dragon-like creature with a fish-like or serpentine head. It's said to have spread terror throughout the small fishing communities along that lake. This sort of bioluminescent creature is rare, even among urban legends. The scientists who have theorized about its possible existence have often insisted that the creature cannot be a reptile due to the frigid conditions up there. Either way, some locals now live in total fear. One old woman was quoted as saying, "I'm afraid. I do not feel comfortable staying in this place. The monster could crawl into my house any day." Honestly, I've got huge respect for her if she ends up staying there. Imagine having to worry every single day if a monster is going to crawl out of a nearby lake and right into your home. No thanks.
At number 10, we have the Death Lions. One of Budapest's most popular landmarks are the iconic stone lions of the Chain Bridge. The bridge was completed in 1849 and 2 lions sit at each end of it, so 4 lions in total. The sculptor Janos Mašalko was happy with his work until an apprentice started freaking out that the lions didn't have any tongues. Don't lions use their fearsome tongues when they roar? Are tongues important with lions? Apparently so. After people began noticing the tongueless lions, they started saying that Mašalko had made a mistake. Now the legend has it he was so upset with himself for his anatomical error that he was driven mad and jumped from the bridge into the watery depths of the Danube where he died. Now the lions are said to carry the heavy burden of their sculptor's regret. I love a good theatre cat. It is traditional for theatres to have a cat. Now,
next up at number 9 now, we have the Manticore. This is an ancient Persian creature of legend that has been both feared and revered over the millennia. It's said to have the head of a human, the body of a lion, and a tail made up of venomous spines, similar to porcupine quills, or perhaps even the actual tail of a scorpion. Its appearance has been compared to the Sphinx of ancient Egypt. The Manticore's name literally translates to man-eater, which kind of gives you a clue as to what it's all about. Ancient descriptions talk of its 3 rows of sharp teeth and the fact that it would hurl its poisonous spikes at enemies like arrows. Essentially, this creature was like all the scary things in the animal kingdom packed into one animal whose name is literally man-eater. I don't think they would have made very good pets.
In our 8th spot, we have Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was a great and well-known emperor of the Roman Empire. He was killed on the Ides of March in 44 BCE. Now, his ashes were placed inside of a lead ball. In 1585, the Pope at the time opened it up to see if his ashes were really in there. Well, legend goes that when he did this, it released the ghost of Julius Caesar. Because now, his ghost roams the city. Get it? Roams the city. Sorry, that was lame. In fact, tons of people have seen his apparition near the Colosseum.
Next up at number 7 now, we have Elena and Alexei. The story goes that in 1942, Elena was a beautiful woman who was engaged to Alexei, a young man who worked at a chemical plant. Tragically, a chemical fire ripped through the plant one day, killing Alexei just days before their marriage. In her grief, Elena threw herself in front of a train wearing her long white gown made for her wedding day by her grandmother. Elena was buried in the municipal cemetery. 10 years later, locals began seeing Elena roaming around the cemetery and walking along the tracks where she died. They say that she is looking for Alexei and cannot rest until she finds him. As we know from the story though, Alexei died at the chemical plant, or perhaps his spirit passed on unimpeded, which is more than we can say for the grief-stricken Elena.
Coming into number 6, we have the ghosts of the Soviets. Marines in Afghanistan's Helmand province reported some very unnerving goings on at a small base called Observation Point Rock. It seems that the Russian soldiers had been executed here by Afghan militants back during the long occupation of the country. The Marines found graves there, and locals in nearby villages told them that the location was heavily cursed. Before the Marines got there, the base was inhabited by a unit of the Welsh Guard, and the two teams of military shared stories. Both claimed that the base was very creepy and unbearable at night, especially between the hours of midnight and 4 AM. They said unexplained lights would be seen through military night vision goggles. Was it haunted? They certainly think so. Okay, this is such a crazy one at number 5. Coming in at number 5, we have the footprint of the devil. I love me a good old geothermic spa, I really do. These are naturally occurring hot springs heated by tectonic activity in the Earth's crust. We know that now, but back in the day, people were baffled by the seemingly magical hot pools. Some people simply didn't trust them. The legend has it that the hot thermal bath of Hackney is warm because it preserves the footprint of the devil. The story goes that the devil took a liking to a local Hungarian girl who he defiled and then ran away, escaping under the ground through a lagoon on his return to hell. Through his escape, he boiled the water, which remains hot today. Lusty devil bath, anyone? Maybe with the sexy chicken nightmare thing. What?
Next up at number 4 now, we have the Tsar. In Persia and across the Middle East, people used to speak in hushed tones of the Tsar, a demon or spirit that possesses people. It would mainly target women, causing them great discomfort or illness. Of course, the concept of possession exists in a lot of cultures around the planet. It doesn't matter what the religion is, what the evil spirit is called, many cultures resort to the same thing: exorcism, the practice of expelling a demon from the person it has possessed. If you think of a Christian exorcism, you're probably picturing a very serious looking priest in a dark room and a scary looking girl with crazy eyes just growling in the corner. Maybe that's just me. When it comes to the Tsar though, it's a very different affair. There have been some accounts of Tsar exorcisms being akin to a night of entertainment. They would involve food, musical performances and dancing. I think The Exorcist would have been a very different movie if they were expelling a Tsar, let me tell you that.
Coming in at number 3, we have the flaming carriage. Well, Rome is apparently filled with ghosts. This time, let's talk about the ghost of Olympia Marachina. When Olympia was 20 years old, she was married for the first time. But that marriage didn't last long because her husband died and she became very rich. Now, Olympia was very power hungry and eventually became the Pope's right-hand woman. Now, legend goes that just before the Pope died, she took 2 big cases of gold, stuffed it into her carriage, and fled. Now, people have reported seeing her dressed in all black, fleeing Piazza Navona while carrying her stolen gold. Others claim to have heard her shrieking in laughter while you can see her in a ghostly black carriage.
Moving on to number 2 now, we have a change of weather. This is the story of Sofia Porovskaya. She was a member of a radical group within the Socialist Party at the start of the 20th century. She carried out assassination attempts on the royal family and government officials. Now, because of this, she was sentenced to death by hanging for her crimes against the state. In the years since, a bit of a legend has built up over the years that's linked to the story of Sofia. Locals say that when the weather turns bad in March, Sofia will appear on the bridge over the Ekaterinski Channel. Her face will look blue from the suffocation of her execution. There will also be a purple trace on her neck from rope burns. Some even say she carries a white handkerchief in her hand, signaling to her comrades to start the revolution.
At least at number 1 we have the giants. Now in Afghanistan many people believe in giants, as I do as well. Some people believe they walked the earth of their country just 80 years ago. A writer for the Business Insider retold an exchange with himself and a police officer who was adamant that 30-meter tall humanoids lived in Kabul. This may sound strange, but in 2002 a weird rumor surfaced that American military officials killed a 12 to 18-foot red-haired giant in Kandahar while troops were on patrol and were involved in a cover-up. 2 so-called former special ops soldiers spoke in a video posted on YouTube about the encounter. Haven't watched it, but I definitely want to now. They said they came across a giant 3 times the size of a normal man with extra digits on his hands and feet and was carrying a huge sword. They said that one of their fellow soldiers, a man named Dan, was killed by the giant, which they believed to be a Nephilim, basically a biblical offspring between gods and humans. I just really don't know what to make of this. I don't want to believe in it, but I do. I don't know.
Let's get into our number 10 10, which is Al. In Persian folklore, Al is said to be a demon of childbirth. Their sole purpose in this world is to interfere with human reproduction. Usually, they take the form of a scrawny old woman with a clay nose and a bright red face. She also has sharp fangs, disheveled hair, copper claws, iron teeth, and the tusks of a wild boar. The old woman attacks pregnant women, but like the evil being it is, it only strikes when they are alone and at their most vulnerable. She wants their organs and will attempt to take the woman's liver or lung. Afterwards, she will put them in a basket which she carries around with her at all times. If she is successful, the demon will attempt to escape and cross the first source of water. That's important because at that point, the woman cannot be saved. Believers use special wards or charms to prevent the demon from reaching water, thereby saving the pregnant woman and the baby she is carrying.
Moving on at number 9, we have Beatrice Cenge. The ghost of Beatrice Cenge is probably the most well-known legend and famous ghost story in Rome. So, story goes that Beatrice had a very hot-headed and controlling father. Eventually, her and her family grew sick of his behavior and attitude, so they killed him. But police noticed his absence and eventually found his dead body. As a result, Beatrice and her family were sentenced to death. Now it's said that Beatrice's ghost appears every year on the night of her death, walking along the bridge that leads to the Castel Sant'Angelo. Some have even reported seeing her carrying her own head in her arms.
Moving on to number 8 now, guys, we have the mystery craters. In July 2014, a mysterious hole appeared in the permafrost of Siberia. It was spotted by helicopter pilots in the remote Yamal region and soon captured the world's attention. Reindeer herders reported a second hole a few days later, and then finally a third one was found. What was going on with these massive holes in the ground? Why were these gaping holes appearing in the earth when just months before there was absolutely nothing? While researchers tried to figure out what exactly was going on, the internet was abound with rumors. Legends began to stir. Some claimed that the holes were actually long forgotten Soviet-era experiments. They said that during the Cold War, the Soviets were experimenting with a terrible power, the power to make the very ground itself swallow people, towns, and cities whole. They said that the experiment was cut short before completion, and those holes were the remnants of the work activated by accident all these years later. Now, scientists have suggested that the holes have actually been created by ice melting and releasing methane, but that doesn't really make for a good urban legend, does it?
Coming into number 7, we have a dragon defeating the Red Army. This honestly is a weird one, I have to admit, but this really is what some people in Afghanistan are going with. So it seems that some people believe that the reason the Soviet Union failed the war they started against Afghanistan was partly thanks to a dragon. Outside the town of Balola, Mujahideen fighters were battling the Red Army, and it seems the ruckus awoke a long slumbering dragon who was dormant in the mountain. The dragon was said to have incinerated the entire Soviet army in the town before heading back to bed. He eats Bolsheviks for breakfast. We have the Nightmare Chicken at number 6. Okay, maybe something is a little lost in translation here because I'm literally getting sexy nightmare chicken and like, what is that about? The sexy nightmare chicken is the lideric, which is said to be hatched from the first egg laid from a black chicken and kept warm under the armpit of a human. Once hatched, the lideric attaches itself to humans as a succubus. It becomes vampire-like, sucking the blood of its lover and giving them terrible nightmares. The benefit of having one of these nightmare chickens is that it will make you rich beyond belief until it kills you, which isn't ideal. The only way to rid yourself of a lideric is to lock it in a tree hollow, or by persuading it to perform an impossible task like counting grains of sand on a beach. Sexy nightmare chicken. Who knew?
Moving on to number 5 now, we have the night hag. This is a great one. It's a concept that exists in a number of different cultures, but in Iran it's known as the bakstak. It's said to be an evil ghost or creature that causes sleep paralysis. In Iran though, there's a slight twist on this well-known legend. The bakstak is a sort of guardian of treasures. It's believed that the creature somehow knows about hidden treasures in the world. However, it's always a closely kept secret, especially to mortals like us. Humans are not supposed to even know about the hidden treasure's existence, and especially not where it's located. There is a way to find out though. Legend says that if you grab the creature's nose, it will be forced to tell you where the hidden treasure is. If you can't manage that because of the paralysis, wiggling your fingers can release you from its clutches. at least for now.
Moving on to number 4, we have the Temple of Beelzebub. Now, this is another urban legend surrounding the Colosseum. This time, it was thought that the Colosseum was dedicated to Beelzebub, the prince of all demons. According to the legend, in order to become members of his following, you would have to go into the Colosseum and answer the following question: do you adore Beelzebub? In fact, it is even thought that the name Colosseum was derived from this phrase.
Coming in number 3 now, we have the Blazing Orb. In 2013, the Chelyabinsk meteor was a 66-foot asteroid that broke up in Earth's atmosphere over Russia. It created a light brighter than the sun and a shockwave that smashed windows for miles around. The town of Chelyabinsk was right under the path of the asteroid and experienced some strange phenomena soon after the event. People reported seeing a glowing fog come down from the sky above, followed by a giant blazing orb. Meteorologists suggested that this may have just been the result of street lights reflecting off ice crystals, but others weren't so convinced. They believed it was too much of a coincidence for this to happen at the same time as this close call with the meteor. Aliens? Aliens. It's gotta be aliens, right?
Нифига. Охренеть нафиг.
Coming into number 2, we have Karikot Castle. In the frozen mountains of Afghanistan's Paktika province, there is an old castle that was built by the British in the 1800s. Good old Brits, we love building a castle. It seems it was built when the British forces were fighting the Anglo-Afghan Wars, a series of wars which ultimately the Afghans won. Anyway, wherever we are, we do need a castle as we discussed, so we made it happen. After the war, it fell into disrepair. Look at it, it's truly creepy. It seems that it was inhabited again by the Soviet army when they bust up into the country too. Now, nobody is totally sure what went down at the castle other than death and despair from the two losing armies. Locals will not go near the abandoned building, and they say it is absolutely filled to the brim with ghosts. Those brave enough to venture nearby say that the castle emits an evil aura and also is privy to strange noises.
Last but
Finally, coming into number 1, we have Gloomy Sunday and the Smile Club. Gloomy Sunday is a Hungarian song written in 1933 by a depressed musician by the name of Rez Seres. His sadness clearly translated into the song, which became his first real success in the music industry. Sadly, he never lived to feel it. Both he and the girl he wrote the song about killed themselves, but legend has it that he unleashed a curse in his music that affected a nation. Actually, it affected a wider world. Now, it seems that the song turned Budapest into a city of suicides. Many people drowned themselves in the Danube after hearing his music. People were found dead holding the sheet music of the song, others wrote lyrics in their suicide notes, and one guy even shot himself because he couldn't get the tune out of his head. In response, a group of Hungarians set up something called the Smile Club to try and encourage people to be happy. This was also quite sinister though. According to the legends, the club would tape people's mouths up so they had no choice but to smile. Billie Holiday actually covered Gloomy Sunday in 1941, and this caused a fresh spate of suicides across the world. The song was so problematic that the BBC banned it from their airwaves. Is this Hungarian song really cursed? Legend has it that, yeah, it is.
Starting off this countdown, we have the ghostly hand. Constanza Conti de Cupis was a very beautiful woman in the 17th century. She was often praised because she had beautiful hands. In fact, an artist even cast a mold of her hands, which he then displayed in his workshop. But that's not the creepy part. Apparently one day a stranger warned her that she was going to lose her hand very soon. Well, shortly after, she was sewing and she pricked her finger with a needle. This tiny prick turned into an infection which spread to her arm. As a result, she needed to have her whole arm amputated. Sadly, she eventually died of this infection. Now it's said that her presence lurks the streets of Rome. In fact, there have been numerous reported sightings of her apparition. Others say that when the moon shines on a window near Palazzo de Cupis, you'll be able to see her hand pressing against the glass window.
Next up at number 9 now, we have Vladimir Ledenev. In 2007, the body of Vladimir Ledenev Lev was discovered in his home after not being seen for almost 7 years. He was discovered in a sitting position, his arm leaning on the kitchen table, his head was slumped over. There was an empty vodka bottle and a glass sat in front of him. His neighbours reported that the 68-year-old had vanished without a trace over 6 years ago. They thought he'd moved somewhere else or checked himself into a hospital as he had been diagnosed with tuberculosis. They told police that he had started drinking heavily after his mother passed away 10 years prior. They told investigators that although people had tried to get in contact with him when he first disappeared, eventually all inquiries stopped and he was pretty much forgotten. The discovery of his body was finally made by workers at a house management office as they made their rounds in the apartments of those who owed unpaid bills.
At number 8 now we have Kabul University. Now after the Taliban had fallen, work was done emotionally and physically to rebuild Kabul University. It's rumored that the Taliban used to torture and murder hostages in dorm rooms and classrooms in the building. Obviously the ins and outs of it aren't totally known, but from what we do know of the Taliban, it seems entirely possible that this did happen. Aid workers and construction workers tasked with rebuilding and repairing the university reported smelling foul odors like rotting flesh at random times while in seemingly sterile environments. Some also reported hearing screams or even seeing the victims of the Taliban out of the corner of their eyes. I mean, imagine how freaky that is if you just saw that. A lot of paranormal believers say that ghosts tend to imprint on places of high emotional intensity, so perhaps this is the case. Whatever it is, I really don't want to see it.
Coming in at number 7, we have wisps. Hungarian culture, a lot like a lot of Europe, is alive with fairy tales. One enduring legend is that of the wisps. The wisps are complex creatures, and talk of them became rife in the 20th century. Wisps are blamed for people's bad moods or sicknesses. It seems that wisps are parasites who sit on people's chests, which sounds like a familiar urban legend in Middle Eastern countries. They believe that there's a sleep paralysis demon who sits on your chest at night giving you nightmares. Anyway, in Hungary the wisps spread disease and cause people to be depressed. If you're inexplicably angry, it is likely the work of Guta, and if you're feeling bitter, it could be Fene. This could well be another type of wisp up next.
Next up on number 6 now guys, we have the ghoul. With a name like that, how could it not be on this list? A ghoul is actually an old Arabic word that didn't even enter the English language until the late 18th century. In Persian culture, ghouls are demons or monsters associated with graveyards or consuming people's flesh. Some accounts state that a ghoul lives in the desert and shapeshifts into animals in order to hunt humans. One of its favourite forms is that of a hyena. The ghoul lures unwary people out into the desert. Once they are totally alone and out of sight of all other people, the ghoul kills and devours them on the spot. The creature also preys on young children, it drinks blood, it steals coins and eats the dead. An all-round baddie, you might say. Perhaps even more scary though is its ability to take the form of the person it most recently ate. Imagine how scary that would be, realizing that your friend was a sort of shape-shifting ghoul. Perhaps you should check all your friends in the near future. Better safe than sorry.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the 7th door to hell. Back in medieval times, it was thought that the famous Colosseum in Rome was one of the 7 doors to hell. In fact, it said that after each gladiator fight, a man would dress up as the ferryman to the underworld. Basically, the ferryman for Hades that carries souls of the deceased to the world of the dead. Well, apparently, he would use a hot iron to test if the victim was truly dead. Then he would carry them through one of the doors in the Colosseum. That's how this legend came to life. Now, others say that the Colosseum is infested with ghosts of individuals who died during the fights. Every now and then you can hear sounds of heavy chains being dragged on the ground. And some have even saw ghosts walking around in the cellars.
Next up on the number 4 spot now, we have the Church of the Saviour on Blood. This temple is one of the most famous pieces of architecture in Russia. From the outside, it's clearly a thing of beauty. On the inside though, this beauty makes way for a darker mystery. People from all over the world have obsessed over the hidden secrets within its walls. Some say that it has icons and engravings on the walls and hidden under its roof that seem to have predicted future events in Russia's history. The legend goes that an icon under the roof has a few numbers on them. One of them is 1917, 1917, the year of the Russian Revolution. Another is 1941, the year that Hitler invaded the Soviet Union. It's believed that the icon has power and is able to predict these monumental events in the history of Russia. They say it will do this for future events too, that if a tragedy is approaching Russia one day, the icon will show silhouettes and dates as a warning of what is to come.
Coming into number 3, we have the Ale. The Ale are an urban legend from the Tajikistan border. They are said to be beautiful female-looking ghosts or specters with milky white eyes. Now they float around the Kush mountains at high noon and twilight. Despite being beautiful, they are said to be hostile and violent and could cause you harm if you come across them. For this reason, locals are known to stay away from the mountains during these times of day for fear of incurring the Ale's wrath. Coming into number 2, we have Goliath, the CIA whale. So the 1950s were a weird time. 70 years ago, a lot of the Western world was still kind of obsessed with sideshows. In 1952, 3 whales were harpooned in Norway and then taken on a tour across Europe, sometimes under the guise of being educational. Sometimes they were a freaky sideshow oddity. This isn't even the urban legend part, this is the truth part. So these whales were toured around and displayed in towns and cities in huge formaldehyde tanks. They smelled awful, apparently, which I can imagine, although don't like to. As they went on tour, they were loaded into huge special transportation trucks. On the side, they had the name of the whale. Alright, so here is where the conspiracy theory / legend comes in. A lot of people think that actually the whole whale thing was a CIA cover-up and that they were actually testing road routes and road capacities to be able to transport nuclear missiles across Europe without people knowing. Some say that the whales, including Goliath who toured Hungary, were kept in storage and nuclear weapons secretly filled the whale vehicles. So weird. So wild.
And finally, number 1 now guys, we have the evil eye. This is a belief that is not exclusive to Iran, but it has existed there for a very long time. The evil eye is said to be a curse or legend cast by a malevolent glare. Most of the time it's given to a person when they are completely unaware. It could even have happened to you today. The belief is that receiving this curse will lead to deep misfortune or even physical injury. As a form of defense, many cultures create talismans in an effort to ward off this curse. In Iran, as a legacy of the Ottoman Empire, it's not uncommon to see nazars, blue coloured glass in the shape of an eye, that are said to keep the curse at bay and the tragedies that follow them.